Because at that point in history, a boy hadn't even looked my way. I am a follower, so here we go. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Maddie and today's video is going to be a reading vlog where I read new releases for a week. I already have 2 books picked out for this video because I got them from the Libby app. Go get a library card if you don't have one already. Such an amazing resource. One of them is an audiobook and then the other one I will be reading on my Kindle. And let me tell you a little bit about the first book. This is the audiobook and it is called Nothing Like the Movies by Miss Lynn Painter herself. It is the sequel to Better Than the Movies, which I actually read maybe 2 months ago. And unlike literally everyone I've ever seen talk about this book, I did not give this book 5 stars. I gave it like 3 stars. It's probably more like 2.53 stars. I actually like The Do-Over by Lynn Painter better. I don't know. Maybe I just hyped Better Than the Movies up in my head for such a long time, but it just didn't live up to the hype. However, I know I was filming a reading vlog when I read this, and I remember saying that I would read the sequel because I just feel like we didn't get to see a lot of Wes and Liz together. The whole book was building up to their relationship, and then like every rom-com they got together at the end, which I'm happy for them, but like we literally never saw them dating officially. So I was so excited to finally pick up the sequel and see them together and their happily ever after. Was nobody gonna tell me about the summary of the sequel? Let me just read it to you. For a few beautiful months, Wes had his dream girl, the strong-willed girl next door, Liz. But right as the two were about to set off for college to start their freshman year, tragedy struck. Wes was left dealing with the fallout, which ultimately meant losing Liz in the process. So this is like a second chance romance. So they're not even together in this book either. But then it starts talking about how they both end up in the same college a few years later, and Wes is determined to win Liz back. So I'll tell you guys a little bit more about it when I get further into the audiobook, and then I will update you on the second book I'm reading as well. Walking to my workout class, and I'm going to listen to the audiobook of Nothing Like the Movies. Let's go.
Moonlight peeks through the curtains. Another night, another fight.
Reading update. I am now just over halfway through with Nothing Like the Movies. This is the one I'm listening to as an audiobook, and I have to say I'm really enjoying the audiobook so far. I'm constantly listening to something, whether it's an audiobook, podcast, music, whatever, just while I'm cleaning up around the house, going for walks, riding public transportation. But I have to say, if I did not enjoy an audiobook, I would DNF it. I've done it before. I've stopped listening to an audiobook and I've returned it back to Libby right away if I'm not vibing with it. But I'm vibing with this one. I do have to say, I hate that we don't get to see Wes and Liz back together until practically the end of this book, I'm assuming. I would love to see more of their relationship when they're together, since the first book ended right as they got together, and then now we're a few years in the future where they're broken up currently. Like, I know it's gonna end happier, but it just kind of defeats the purpose of reading a romance novel if they're not together for more than they aren't together, you know? I don't know. Also, there's this one phrase that keeps coming up, and I'm a little surprised Lynn Painter would even include it. It's not even like that it's immature, because I don't care. Like, I'm a big kid at heart, but it's just silly. It's not necessary. And every time I hear it, because I'm hearing it instead of reading it, I'm like, that is abrupt. That came out of nowhere. So I don't know why Miss Lynn Painter is doing that. Other than that, I did start Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. I'm only 20% into it, so I can't say that I really like it or I hate it yet, but I will tell you a little bit about it. So the novel follows 2 brothers that are very different. One's a lawyer and is way older, Peter, and then Ivan is the younger brother. He's really into chess and he's kind of like antisocial, I don't know. His brother describes him as being like just very different from him. The brothers are brought back together because their father passes away at the very beginning of the book. So far, every chapter is alternating between Ivan and Peter. And the first chapter I read was in Peter's point of view, and it was really hard to follow for me personally, because it was just like, I couldn't tell if we were in his thoughts because everything was very jumbled. Like all the sentences were incomplete. It felt like every sentence just started in the middle of a sentence and then onto the next thought right away without actually using the correct punctuation and stuff like that. And I know Sally Rooney doesn't use quotation marks when the characters are talking, but it was beyond that. Like I can typically follow her dialogue without quotation marks, but this was something else. So when I read the second chapter, and I realized it was in Ivan's point of view, and it was not like that at all. I realized it was kind of to show more about each brother, if that makes sense. You know, Ivan is more organized, put together, and Peter is just like struggling right now. And so that's why like everything is kind of hazy, because when I went back to Peter's point of view, the last chapter I read was exactly the same. So I'm wondering if, as the story goes on and if he's healing his relationships and getting better and going to therapy, hopefully it will make more sense. His story will make more sense, because right now I'm like, Sally, I can't keep reading these incomplete sentences. Okay, I just talked for way too long. I will check in with you guys when I finish Nothing Like the Movies or when something crazy happens in Intermezzo. Bye.
My number, would you wanna know? It's the coldest.
Hey guys, I have not talked to you in a minute, but I have been reading, so go me. First update, I finished Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter. I feel like I was talking about how much I liked the audiobook a few minutes ago in this video. When I reached the 60% mark of listening to this, I lost interest like that. I did not care anymore. I would put it on 2x speed and I was like, let's get on with the story. And it all comes down to, I don't think I really like Liz as a female main character. I'm not vibing with her. I don't know. However, I do like Wes. And Wes had some character development in this story. So that was kind of cool to see. Again, I didn't get to see the main characters together much, and I feel like it was just a repeat of the first book, really. Now, that seems harsh, and you guys have to understand, this is a young adult book, and I am not a young adult. I am 27. So I think that's why I've been so annoyed lately with all of these BookTok books that are going viral, because they're all, what I don't realize at the time is that they're all young adult books. We have Powerless, we have Better Than the Movies, what else? I don't know. You know, all those books that are going viral on BookTok, everybody's raving about them because it's a bunch of teenage girls. I'm happy for you guys, I am. But I am not a teenage girl anymore, so I need to do a little more research before I pick up books. And this is my bad. I knew this is what a young adult book, and I didn't even love the first book that much. I just figured I always like to be listening to something. I don't like to sit in silence while I'm doing chores, working out. I'm listening to an audiobook, okay? I need to be entertained at all times. So I'm glad I listened to it. It was something to do, but I didn't really care at the end of the day. And I'm happy for the people that love this series. I really am. It's kind of like when I was in high school and I read Turtles All the Way Down, The Fault in Our Stars, All the Bright Places. I love those books. Those books are always going to feel so nostalgic to me. And if I had read Better Than the Movies in high school, I probably would have loved it too, because at that point in history, a boy hadn't even looked my way. So if I read a book that had just the faintest touch of romance, I would have ate that book up. There is hardly any romance in this book. But now that I have read my favorite books of all time, now that I have discovered Emily Henry, I don't want just like a cutesy little romance. I want something deeper than that. So I'm sorry, that seems harsh, but just know I am not a young adult. Okay, that was besides the point. Sorry for that long rant, but basically I need to stop reading young adult books and expecting them to be amazing because they were not made for me. I'm not a young adult, I'm not the demographic. But my next update is I'm 60% through with Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. And it's really slow so far, but I'm starting to like the characters more, or not like, but understand them. You know, I kind of know what's gonna happen each chapter. However, there's one thing that is pissing me off about this book, and it absolutely has nothing to do with the storyline from what I can tell so far. So the two main characters' dad died, and their dad had a family dog. The dad and mom are divorced, and the boys obviously lived with the dad, and they don't offer to watch the dog now that the dad died. So the dog's staying at the mom's house, who she was divorced to this guy, and nobody wants to take the dog, and it's pissing me off, and I feel bad for the dog. But one of the main characters, spoiler, just went and picked the dog up. So yeah, I don't like when dogs are involved in books and when people aren't taking care of dogs, or when dogs die, because I fear that is too relatable. So Sam's laughing at me.
I'm just kind of trapped here. I didn't want to walk behind you.
Okay. Yes, I will update you guys when I finish the book. I'm sitting down right now and I'm finishing this book. Not because I want to, mainly because I want it to be over and I want something crazy to happen. I feel like maybe I'll really like the ending. To be determined. Bye. Everyone, I am still sick, first of all, and I have finished Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. I feel like I only gave you one update when I was reading this book, and now I'm going to tell you my final thoughts on it, so sorry for literally giving you nothing else. I don't even know where to begin. Let's just start by saying, not my favorite Sally Rooney book. I'm also kind of annoying because I've only read Normal People by Sally Rooney, but I gave that book 4 stars and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really fast paced. I thought it was simple to follow. I liked the characters, even though they were annoying, you know. I liked that book a lot more than I liked Intermezzo, but it's not a bad book. I actually had a friend ask me today how I liked it and if she should read it, and I told her, this is exactly what I told her. I was kind of bored, but I can appreciate the fact that it was well written and made me think, but I don't want to think. I want to be entertained. So there's that. The story was very complex. It was honestly a very heavy story, and I should have expected that, but it was even heavier than Normal People, and I just wasn't in the mood for that. So I probably read this at the wrong time, but I do appreciate her depictions of grief because the main characters, Ivan and Peter, just lost their father. And so it talks about grief, and I do really appreciate when books talk about grief in a way that feels real. Like this whole story felt very real, but it just wasn't one of my favorites, you know? And I actually found a review on Goodreads that I'm going to read to you that explains exactly what I'm feeling. Only part of the review. The last part of the review I don't necessarily agree with. When I finish a book, I know how I feel about the book right away, but I don't know how to explain it. And so I go to Goodreads and I look at other people's reviews and I'm like, yes, there. Spot on. I am a follower, so here we go. Okay, so Emily May on Goodreads says, unfortunately it dragged in parts. That's not to say I didn't get something out of it. I still really enjoyed the character portraits. Rooney is good at taking messed up relationship dynamics and exploring them up, down, and inside out. Completely agree. Here she looks not only at complex romantic entanglements, but also the relationship between two very different brothers who are struggling to connect with each other and manage their grief after their father's death. I like that she dramatically changes writing styles when she moves between Peter and Ivan's perspectives, reflecting the personalities in Peter's rapid-fire, often meandering thoughts and Ivan's more precisely articulated inner narrative. And that's where I'm going to stop the review. And I completely agree with that last point. I think I explained this in the only other clip where I talked about it. I was so confused with Peter's thoughts, and I think I explained like that's kind of how his brain works in the moment. I was like, I think he's a very anxious person, like often is like there's a lot of thoughts circulating in and out of his brain, and that's like exactly what Sally Rooney was trying to portray, whereas Ivan's chapters were very easy to follow and stuff like that. So I do like that. I think that's very unique, and it really made you understand the characters that much more. As for a rating, maybe like 2.5 stars. I want to give it more because it was like very well written, and I did highlight a few quotes that I resonated with. I just don't think I would ever, I know I would never reread this, and I don't know how I would recommend this to people. I would have to know a little bit about the reader I'm recommending this to before I recommend it to them. It's like definitely not a happy read. It was very emotional and deep and heavy, but that's kind of Sally Rooney's thing. And again, really well written. It did feel different than normal people though in the writing style. I don't know, now I'm just getting too much into this. All I have to say is I finished 2 new releases for this video. Both of them were average reads, and both were very different from the other. I was gonna try to read one more book for this video, but I think this is it, guys. So hope you guys enjoyed this. Don't forget to like this video if you don't hate me, and subscribe down below because I would love to have you stick around and watch me yap about books and anything else. So see you next time. Bye.